So you might be a woman asking yourself, where can I find a man who's over 40 years old and he's got some level of emotional IQ, hopefully has high emotional IQ. We're going to dive into this conversation today. I'm sure many of you ladies have experienced what's known as an avoidant man, or known as an avoidant attachment style, or maybe an anxious man known as anxious attachment style. These are levels of insecure attachment. I'm sure you've experienced men who are emotionally unavailable, or men that are emotionally constipated, or narcissistic men, God forbid, or abusive men, please, God forbid. Lots of wounded men, lots of broken men, lots of commitment phobic men, lots of players and love bombers, users and spenders. I'm sure many of you are asking yourself, where can I find what's known as a grower builder, that emotional man with emotionally high IQ? Now, as we dive into this conversation, if you're not familiar with my chart of the three types of people actively dating, by the way, you'll notice on the bottom, this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. There are 20% of the population are what I call users. These are the love bombers, the players, those seek short-term goals, the gold diggers, the entitled people. They're only in it for themselves. And while I say over here 20% of the population are grower builders, they have good emotional maturity, good relationship skills, the vast majority of everybody is what I call a spender. The reason why they're called spenders is they'll spend time with you. They seek companionship, connection, and sex. They have no real direction, uncertainty, they're fearful, have a dysfunctional lifestyle. They put you in what's known as a placeholder category. If you've ever experienced those men that are called spenders, I'm sure you felt rather frustrated because you gave your heart to somebody who you thought had some potential, only to find out that they spent time with you but were unable to commit. Now, the difference between a man with emotionally high IQ, or what I call an emotional grown-up, or the grower builders, is that they show up a completely different way. But before we lean into how they show up, we have to look at how you show up to attract this type of person in your life. So when we talk about emotional maturity, you have to ask yourself, are you emotionally mature? And today I'm going to outline what that looks like so we can know what that person looks like when we see them. Okay. So in my upcoming book, which I can't give out the title yet, but I'm working on a new book. One of the sections is called Know Thyself. Know Thyself. And this is particularly in the romantic relationship realm. How well do you know yourself? You know, I work with women all the time. They always come to me, Jonathan, I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want in a relationship. You know what fascinates me is women who go through my proprietary coaching program. Do you know what they say every single time doing the work? I didn't know what I wanted. Why didn't my parents teach me this? Why didn't I learn this in school? Why didn't I learn this before I dated or married the wrong person? See, we have this idea of who we think is right for us, or we even have an idea of who we are. And until we actually dig below the surface, can we actually find out who we are beyond what we think we are? So one of the elements is called Know Thyself. And one of the first elements in Know Thyself is first knowing your love attachment style. If you're not familiar with the book Attached by Amir Levine or Rachel Heller, by the way, there's a link to all the books I recommend and Jonathan recommend books. Also, if you haven't read Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, and if you haven't read the book Learning Love by Thais Gibson, I highly recommend checking out these books. Why? Because you're going to want to know what your love attachment style is. Now, here's the tricky part of taking the online test. 90% of you will show up as what's known as secure because you answer the questions the way you think you'd like to be or the way you wished you'd be, or many of you are even unconscious to your actual patterns, okay? There's two primary love attachment styles. There's secure and insecure. And within the insecure category, there's avoidant, there's anxious, and within avoidant, there's subcategories of fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant. Why is it important to know your love attachment style? If you are unaware of your attachment style, then you're already on the scale of high emotional IQ, a couple rungs down. Okay. If you don't know your attachment style, and again, if you've shown up as secure, chances are you might actually be fooling yourself. I personally believe that the vast majority of the population have an insecure attachment style, and only those people who are actually in happy marriages or happy relationships shift to a secure. But there's some speculation on that. Again, this is my prejudice, my judgment. Don't take that as a verbatim. Okay. But first, knowing your attachment style. But guess what? A man with high emotional IQ also knows his love attachment style. He's done some studying of love attachment style. And you might be going, oh, Jonathan, your chin just dropped. No men know this. Well, believe it or not, there are men who have done this work, and we'll talk about where to find them in a moment. One of the other components of know thyself, as I said earlier, is self-responsibility. Self-responsibility. This is actually knowing that what may trigger you, to know your triggers and to be able to regulate your triggers, to be able to regulate your emotions, but more importantly, not to blame the other person when you get triggered. You know, it's interesting. I once was in a relationship, this was a decade ago, with a woman who thought she was such high emotional IQ, but she had gigantic trust issues. And I happened to be in a business where I talked to women all day long, and she was triggered. And guess what she did? She pointed the finger at me. She pointed the finger at me. She pointed the finger at me. She didn't see those three fingers pointing back at her. Personal responsibility, self-responsibility is knowing your negative patterns, your limiting beliefs, the things that may trigger you. And the benefit of knowing your triggers is you can address these before they become a radically complicated thing in your relationship. When we're talking about emotional IQ, we're talking about human beings that know themselves to the point where they actually recognize what triggers them, and they pay close attention to a trigger is not being a reflection of the other person, but of being a reflection of themselves. One of the fundamentals and key components of know thyself is self-awareness. What is self-awareness? Self-awareness is recognizing one's fears, recognizing their insecurities, recognizing their negative judgments of others, how our actions affect another human being, our limiting beliefs, our negative patterns, and our ability to shift to love when we're in emotional pain. You know, many of you, by the way, I'm going to diss you ladies because you all think you're so highly emotionally mature. And yet I've witnessed woman after woman after woman who doesn't take personal responsibility. She has no self-awareness on her judgments. She has no self-awareness of her limiting beliefs and their negative patterns. If you're not familiar with the book, the Hoffman process, this is a deep dive into healing your childhood wounds and adult traumas so you can be better prepared when you are triggered, when you are feeling a disconnect because of another human being. The other aspect of emotional IQ, high emotional IQ, is you know your weaknesses in life. You know where your strengths are, but you also know your weaknesses when it comes to romantic relationship. These are what I call knowing your red flags. Folks, I'm going to be candid with you. I know one of my weaknesses. I'm not a good overseas traveler. It's a weakness I have. When I'm in a foreign land, I'm scared shitless. It's not very attractive. It's not very masculine. It's not very divine masculine. You're not a real man, Jonathan. You don't know how to handle tough situations when you're in a foreign country. You're a weak man. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but knowing what your strengths are and knowing what your weaknesses are is a sign of knowing who you are as a person. And when it comes to romantic relationships, quite frankly, we should spend more time talking about our weaknesses with someone instead of how great we fucking are. Oh my God, you know what dating today is? A resume. This is how great I am. No, this is how great I am. No, this is how great I am. No, this is how great am I. You should love me because I'm so great. No, you should love me because I'm so great. How about talking about your weaknesses, your insecurities, your fears, the things that keep you up at night? Because the person that can accept that you have a greater chance for success. Now, one of the fundamentals of high emotional IQ is the person who can take personal responsibility over their past relationships. You know what fascinates me? You know what most human beings do in the dating marketplace? It's like the person it was his fault. No, it was her fault. No, it was his fault. No, it was her fault. No, it was his fault. It's her fault. It fascinates me how few human beings take ownership. But Jonathan, I was with a narcissist and he abused me and he did all this. Folks, I don't care if, short. If you didn't have to call a doctor, an attorney, or a policeman while you were in relationship with them, I don't mean divorced attorney, but if you didn't have to call a doctor, attorney, or policeman, you were an active participant in this relationship. You have to take some ownership as to the reason why it ended. And ownership isn't, well, now I know what not to do. That doesn't count, okay? But if a person doesn't take ownership, let me tell you something. The most gigantic clue you can tell if someone is emotionally mature is if they take 100% ownership for their part of the ending of a relationship. But I'm going to tell you something, the dating marketplace today, I don't care if you're a man or woman, it seems like the women blame their ex-boyfriend and the ex-boyfriend blames the ex-girlfriend. Nobody takes ownership. And that's not a sign of high emotional IQ. You know, doing the inner work, doing the healing work, doing the personal development, the self-help and spiritual work. If you haven't read my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help and Spiritual Work, there's a link below to get a copy of my book. This is all designed for those human beings that want to grow and heal beyond who they are today. A person with high emotional IQ is doing the personal development, self-help, spiritual work, therapy, introspective work to grow beyond. Because relationship readiness is a function of desire and capacity that exceeds the fears and the pains of past relationships or childhood wounds. Let me repeat that. The desire and capacity to be in relationship exceeds the fear, the pain, the past hurts. Okay? If you have someone that's still stuck in the past, they're not ready for a relationship. And furthermore, what's going to make them choose you is that the desire and capacity exceeds the fear, the pains, and the differences, because the reality is you're going to have radical differences between the two of you. Now, hopefully you're aligned on your values. Hopefully you're aligned on your vision. Hopefully you're aligned in lifestyle blendability. Hopefully you're aligned in emotional maturity. But sadly, many of you are not, because you're stuck, or God forbid, you're still stuck on a past relationship. That desire doesn't exceed, and the capacity. Many people might have many of you ladies have a capacity, or men have a capacity, you have a desire for a relationship, but your capacity to be in a relationship is so damn fucking weak. We can barely lift you off the floor. And here's another component of emotional IQ. We are swimming in a sea of victim consciousness here. People are suckling on the nipple of victim consciousness. High emotional IQ is victor consciousness. And let's add into that relationship skills. You know, most human beings, it's funny. I'm going to criticize you ladies. You all tell me, Jonathan, communication's the most important thing in a relationship. Jonathan, communication's the most important thing in a relationship. Jonathan. But I'm talking to women who don't even know how to identify their feelings or articulate their feelings in a way that can be seen, heard, and understood. And certainly men are no picnic at it either. This is why I recommend this book over and over and over again, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, which it should have been titled Compassionate Communication. At the end of the day, a person with high emotional IQ, they know their deal breakers, they know their must-haves, they know their purpose in life, they know their inner compass. So where can you find this person? Well, first you have to find it within yourself. And many human beings are so delusioned, they're in fantasy of their own emotional maturity. Most everybody thinks they have high emotional IQ. Well, I can tell you from what I've observed, men and women alike, most everybody is at the bottom of the barrel of emotional maturity and relationship skills. You have to look for those people that are actively doing the work. How do we find those people? Where do we find them? You're going to find them in the dating marketplace, but it's not about where to find them. It's how to identify them. How to identify them. And by the way, if you need some support, there's a link right below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. My whole coaching program. And I can't believe how it can change people's lives. This program makes such a difference. And I make a promise to you, if you did the work, you're going to attract an amazing potential partner in your life. If you need some support, check out the links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Here's the thing. Most human beings are doing the best they can. I don't believe most human beings intentionally try to use another. We just have a wounded population that has not done very much inner work to actually improve upon themselves. So where do you find these people? You find them at personal development workshops. Sometimes you find them at spiritual retreats. Sometimes you find them at a Tony Robbins seminar. In fact, ladies, gazillion men go to Tony Robbins seminar. They go to Lewis Howes seminars. They go see those motivational speakers. Those are the people oftentimes doing more work on themselves because they want to grow past their limitations. You're going to have to get your butt out of the house and go to do the thing. If you want to find those men, first go do that work outside of your home and start hanging out in places where these people exist. Because if you're going to personal development workshops, I guarantee you, men are there too. And believe it or not, most personal development workshops I go to, it's 50-50 men and women. I know you ladies thinks it's 90% men, or excuse me, 90% women. And I don't mean a relationship seminar. I'm talking about a personal development, self-help, or spiritual seminar. That's where people of slightly higher emotional IQ exist. But first, become what you want to attract, because then you become more of a magnetic attractor to this. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And also make sure you hit that notification right up top on your phone so you can get notified of videos as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. This is a group where you can have direct access to me on a regular basis for less than $20 a month. There's a link to get my books I recommend. There's a link to follow me on Instagram. There's a link to get my dating vows, all listed below. All right. Those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, write the word question in the little chat box and then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there in his Obey shirt. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, just to name a few, and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal tonight is $50, so I'd appreciate the love. If 20 of you just spent $2.50, we'd hit our goal tonight. So just hit that little $. All right. Let's see. Catherine says, knowing one's EIQ is part, executing it in true real form. Part 2, it's easy to see and identify the disconnect. Exactly. As I said earlier in this broadcast, when you know yourself, when you have that self-awareness, when you know your love attachment styles, when you know your triggers, you know your weaknesses, you begin to recognize this in other people. Very quickly, when you are attuned and you're aligned to yourself, you can literally, your intuition is doing all the work for you thereafter. This is why I'm a big proponent of doing this work. It's one of the reasons why my private coaching is so successful. We do a reboot for every person. to get them so attuned that your intuition is doing all the work for you. What's the definition of insanity, folks? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. This is where I'm here to support and help you in that regard. All right, let's keep going. Cheryl's in the house. Question: on a second date, I asked him, when you reflect on the ending of your marriage, what role do you think you played? He got really defensive. Did I do the wrong thing? Abso-fucking-lutely not. His defensiveness. See, here's the thing, ladies. We've got to stop this romantic way of dating. It is a fucking interview process. More importantly, it's an interrogation process. I operate from the premise, ladies, whenever I'm on a dating app, my first thought is, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how fucked up is she? This is what I'm trying to determine. I don't focus on the good. I'm focusing on what could be the potholes in front of me. So if somebody gets defensive over a very valid question, this is a person who's probably not capable of being introspective. And certainly, he most likely doesn't take ownership on his part. You did nothing wrong. If you spoke sincere and from your heart, folks, chapter 1 in my book, Speak Your Truth, Do It With Kindness. Chapter 9, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, Cheryl. He wasn't the right person if he got defensive on a very sincere. But Jonathan, all the dating coaches tell me that I should just play games. I've just got to lean back in my feminine energy and play all the games and just, and, you know, smile and be pretty and, you know, not be very, inquisitive. Folks, if those dating coaches were so right, why are people so fucking miserable out there in the dating marketplace? Let's just think about that for a second. If the book, The Rules, was so great, why are people miserable out there? It's because game playing doesn't work. Margaret wants to share with everyone, Tony Robbins is very good. I agree. 5,000 people in a room. Christina says, how do you finally move on after being ghosted? It's so hard when there is no closure, but I know the desire better. Ghosting. Well, we have to look at every relationship ending is a death of some sort. Ghosting is almost bordering on betrayal. Okay. So death is real. When someone dies, we can process that, and it might be very painful to process, but we can accept that. Somebody ends a relationship because they're misaligned with you. That really fucking sucks. I've lived through that. Somebody ghosts, somebody betrays you and cheats on you. The ghost, it all feels like a betrayal, like you've invested in somebody who is completely different than who you thought they were. This requires a big, gigantic hug of self-love, first and foremost, and recognizing that you have to take ownership in your sovereignty and recognize another human being just may not have the capacity to be at your level of emotional maturity. And just, practice forgiveness if you can. In this particular case, I think ghosting, forgiveness. In other words, forgiveness, how does Brene Brown say it, or who says it? Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. And forgiveness means forgiving love. Just give yourself love. That's the antidote to suffering. The antidote to suffering is choosing love over fear and pain. That's the antidote to suffering. Choosing love over fear, and love and compassion over fear and pain. Marilia says, where do you recommend starting for my journey of self-growth? Hey, just type in self-growth, self-help, personal development near me. Just do all of those near me and just start studying. Read my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? By the way, Mariella, the back of my book, recommended readings, studies, teachers, and workshops. And I've got 2 pages full of it. Okay. Hey, there's right there. Check that out. Okay. Go to my book. Give you some places to start. Hey, Roller Girl just gave us a $2 super sticker. Thank you for the love. Empress de Seville says, I need a reboot. That's what my coaching's all about. It's Reboot 2.0. Coach Amy says, what do you think about being in a relationship with someone who doesn't care to travel overseas since you're scared of it? I didn't say, oh, with a person who doesn't. You got to ask yourself, how much time do you spend in another country? If it's 2 weeks every 3 years, do you want to give up the other 50 weeks a year with somebody? By the way, when I say I'm scared of travel, doesn't mean I don't do it. I'm just not good at it, is all I meant. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, you've got to ask yourself, how radically important is that? If you're traveling 15 weeks out of the year, then you're probably misaligned with each other. If you do 2 weeks every 3 years, is it really going to be that big deal? You can always go with your girlfriends. You can go with family members. You can go with children. You don't necessarily. My mother traveled the world without my father. Let me repeat that. My mother traveled the world without my father. Sometimes it doesn't have to be everything together. Like I don't ski, but it seems like every woman in Los Angeles skis. I'm not going skiing with them. By the way, I used to live up in Mammoth Mountain. I just got burnt out on skiing is all. Bella's in the house. If someone these days all the right things in the beginning says all the right things in the beginning, how can you foresee the emotional immaturity? I feel like I was bait and switch. See, now you said they said all the right things, but you didn't know how to read between the lines. Bella, as I've said in videos before, one of the things I teach in my private coaching is something known as gauge his emotional maturity. I give you the inside scoop on how to read behind all the right things, to look beyond the surface, to peek under the cloak. And you have to learn this skill because they can say all the right things, but it's because you're listening with the wrong ears. And that's why I would say, hey, check out the link below to schedule a discovery call with me. See if working with a coach is right for you. All right, Coach Amy, when you meet women, do you make sure at the start they are fine with your biz working with women? You know, that's a good question. I would say, certainly I'm very adamant about, I would like someone to partake in my business to some degree. I have like my business life and my personal life are so intertwined. My purpose is to make a difference in the world and using dating, mating, and relating as the conversation for healing on an emotional level through self-love. So I'm a self-love advocate. I just use the dating conversation to encourage personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. I'm seeking someone who wants to join me on my mission to making a difference in the world. This is my passion. If their passion is something radically different, then we're probably just misaligned with each other. And yes, I talk to women all day long, but guess what? It's not like I'm physically seeing them. I'm literally a homebody. So, and I'm not walking out in the street and getting mobbed by women. So I'm not worried about that. And if someone is worried about that, then I have to ask myself, where is their security level? Because their sovereignty level, because the right woman for me has an emotional IQ, preferably close to my own level. But thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Ariel wants to go back to that ghosting question. If he didn't give you closure, you need to create one for yourself and move on. They don't need to, they don't owe you. Closure is something we do for ourselves. I mean, he could call you up and say, hey, look, this is why I broke up with you. Done. But do you really need that? If it's not right for one person, it's not right for both people. Can someone put that in the chat box? If it's not right for one person, it's not right for both people. Hey, does anyone want to join me on the hot seat? I just posted a link. Hey, we just had a new member join our membership here on YouTube. Thanks so much, Mish son. Coach Amy said, if I'm repeating this, do you think something is wrong with women who don't have a relationship with a man who does your type of business? You're working with women. Wait, do you think something is wrong with women who don't want to have a relationship with a man? No, everybody has their own preference. I mean, somebody might prefer a man who's in real estate, and they can do real estate together. I think people that are aligned in their life vision and their passions are the people that should choose to be in partnership together for midlife. You see, you have to understand, when you're in baby making years, your primary goal is to make babies and raise a family. You're totally immersed in that. At midlife, you have to figure out what your purpose in life is, both as individuals, and see if you align in your purpose. That's the way we have to focus on midlife. Because if you don't have a shared passion, it's radically difficult. I'm not talking about professional passion. I'm talking about purpose in life. Because a person that doesn't have purpose is running around going, I don't know what to do with my life. Bella wants to say 100%, Jonathan. Thank you. You're very welcome. Ariel's come back to say, I'm an active woman trying to date an inactive man, naps every day, always tired, low energy. Can we get along? What's your attraction to him? By the way, I take naps. By the way, most people nowadays, by the way, do you know that they say that, by the way, I don't know where I heard this, but a 20-minute nap a day actually adds like years to your life. It's for heart health. Now, I recognize low energy. Some people are homebodies. They probably are better served with a homebody, and somebody who's active like a shark, always moving, needs to be with another shark that's always moving. So maybe they're misaligned with you, but then ask yourself, why are you interested in this person? What do you find attractive in this person? What common ground do you have with each other? Do you share the same values? Do you share the same lifestyle? Do you share the same emotional maturity? But, you don't have to go to Pilates every day of the week together. All right, let's keep going. Hey, Power Chi is in the house. I read somewhere that one of the signs of subconsciously being a control freak is taking rejection, ghosting really bad, and not moving on emotionally. What do you think? Bella, I see you there for a second, so I'll get there in a second. I'm not familiar with, read somewhere that one of the signs subconsciously being a control freak is taking rejection, ghosting really bad. Well, I think we all have neuroses in a variety of different ways. I think actually most human beings are actually control freaks anyway, because we want to control our environment. We want to feel safe. We want to feel a sense of security. I think we all are control freaks to some degree. Some are just more anal about it than others. I just believe that because we don't feel safe unless our environment is controlled. So, but here's the thing. A person who's done personal development, self-help, and spiritual work, their self-love is of such importance that they don't need to point the other finger. They can come up with closure all on their own. They don't need the other person to give that to them. That's just my rough thoughts there, Power Chi. All right, Bella's in the house.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi. Hi, Bella.
Hi. So my question is, and I hate to be redundant, I know. I've got homework. I get it. I have homework. But I dated a guy for like 8.5 weeks. I'm sure there were little signals there, but he did everything right. Like,
tell me what he did right. Tell me what he did right.
He was very patient and kind with me. He took me to very nice places. He made me laugh consistently, made me happy with every date, and introduced me to his entire family, his son, all his brothers and sisters.
Okay.
His entire family. Like, he presented me as his girl.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of time together. I mean, we were dating at least 3 times.
By the way, Bella, did the penis ever get to go inside the vagina?
No.
So there was no sex.
Well, not the P and the V.
Okay, so there was oral sex in the 8 weeks that you were together.
Yes.
Okay. What was his favorite color?
Red.
You're just guessing.
No. I wore a red dress on our
Okay.
first date.
And he said, that's my favorite color.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about his last relationship. When was his last relationship?
He said a couple years ago, like about
He
a year
said
and
a
a half.
couple years ago. And then
A
how
year.
long was that relationship?
He said about a year and a half.
A year and a half. And why did that relationship end?
He said she didn't want to be serious. She wanted to play.
She didn't want to play. Okay. And what was his relationship before that?
His marriage.
And how long was he married for?
20, almost 25 years.
Okay. And who ended the marriage?
She deserted him.
She deserted. Why did she desert him?
They were having financial discussions, and he said that he kind of cut her off because she was being irresponsible.
Okay.
And then she started seeing another man from the
Okay.
past, and then
Okay.
she moved in with him, I guess. That's what he
Okay.
said.
Okay. So does that make him a good guy because she did all this?
I didn't think necessarily it made him a good guy. I felt for him. I thought that must be rough because he's, raising a
Or
son
did
on
you?
his own.
Yeah. Oh, so he has 100% custody of his son?
Well, his son's 28 now,
Okay.
but
And how old was his
even at
son
the
when they got
time,
divorced? How old was his son when they got divorced?
still like an adult.
An adult.
20,
Okay.
yeah, in his 20s. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there wasn't a child custody type of thing.
No.
So let's think about this for a second. His wife was unhappy. Sounds like he didn't do a lot to make her happy. So he had a contribution to this, but I suspect that when he told you the story, you're like, oh my God, he got abandoned. His wife did this. Oh, she cheated on him. Oh, he must be such a good guy. Because he didn't need to take ownership on any of his part because it was all her fault and her fault and her fault. Okay. And what did you say about his second relationship not working out? She didn't want to, he sounds like he doesn't know how to pick women that well. He was with her for a year and a half, and all this woman wanted to do was play. Sounds like he doesn't have a good picker.
Yeah.
So why did he end? Okay. So why did he end the relationship with you?
I don't know. He
just
stopped
ghost you?
basically for 2 days. I mean,
Okay.
after 8.5 weeks of communication, pretty
How
much.
often did you guys see in the 8 weeks? How many times did you physically see each other?
Probably at least 3 days a week, if not more.
3 days a week. And you guys saw each other for over 25 times and you guys didn't have sex?
Well,
are you embarrassed to just tell us this? Is that what it is?
No. No, I'm telling you, there was sexual things, but no, the P did not go in the V. Like,
that's a little surprising. By the way, ladies, are you guys in shock like I am? I mean, most guys don't even wait 3 dates, let alone 24 dates.
It wasn't that I didn't, I mean, he was patient with me because he knew I was out of the dating scene for 6 years. I said it.
Okay.
I did a lot of self-work. I was hurt, very wounded from my marriage, and I needed to stay away for a while and help myself.
So let's talk about his child.
Patient and kind and courted me like. But
he
then
courted you. But there was a reason why he chose not to move forward. So what do you think that was?
He might be gay.
That's what you're speculating.
Maybe.
So are you hung up over a gay guy?
Hung up? What do you mean?
Well, you're obviously concerned enough to want to talk about this. So there's some residue from this.
I don't know. I honestly, I'm confused.
All right, let's go into his childhood. Tell me about his childhood.
He said it was really good. He has like 5 brothers and sisters, a great mom, like an awesome, loving mom. His dad, it seems like, was a little absent. He was a cop, and he gambled a lot and seemed like the mom kind of.
Okay, so could you imagine having a father who's a police officer that oftentimes have a very rigid personality? And you also now said he was a gambler, so he might have had some major issues growing up with his father. Is that a possibility?
Very possible.
Okay. So it's possible that these childhood wounds that he experienced just carried forward in his relationships. Where did you meet him?
On a dating site.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so did he completely ghost you?
Well, for 2.5, we had been talking every day. I mean, we were
Okay.
seeing a lot of each other. We had just
Okay.
gone on a vacation together, and spent a few days together
In
nonstop.
the same bed?
Yeah.
By the way, am I the only one? By the way, for those watching, am I the only one in shock that they didn't have sex?
It was basically a failure to really launch.
So you're saying he couldn't get an erection?
Not keep it.
Okay. And how old was he, or is he?
63. And he said
Okay. Well, that
he said it was due to medical issues. He is
okay.
diabetic, stuff like that.
Well, guess what? I mean, he's faced with what 90% of us men in that age bracket, the over 55 category, deal with. It just
Yeah.
the equipment doesn't work like it did in our 20s. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And I was prepared to deal with that. I mean, I
and how
really
long
cared
ago
about
did this end? How long ago did this end?
I ended it Sunday morning.
You
I
ended
just
it some. What
I
did
feel
you
like
do to end it?
I pulled the trigger. Well, he hadn't I sent him like a light text.
Okay.
I and he wasn't responding for like 2 days, and that isn't like him at all. And our last
Well,
conversation, I tried to ask him if something was bothering him or if something was, making him distance himself. And he blew up. Like he said, I don't know what you're talking about. He just like got real defensive.
okay.
And he was away on business. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to cause a problem at the moment.
Okay.
I know you got a lot going on. So I let it go. And then I just texted him lightheartedly, and he just didn't respond. And 2 days
All
go
right.
by.
So let me just be clear. He didn't respond after a text, and then you followed up on Sunday. How did you tell me exactly how you ended it with him, and what did you say?
I said, it's been a great 8.5 weeks.
Okay.
You opened my heart, and I had an amazing time. And then I just mentioned a couple things we did,
Okay.
pizza and blah blah blah. And then I just said, but there's one thing I won't have is someone, I forget how I put it, someone disrespecting my heart.
And how
And
exactly did he disrespect your heart, just so I understand?
by not texting me, by just ignoring me.
So,
I mean, that was
okay.
hurtful to me, and I couldn't
By the way, did you communicate this in person, over the phone, or via text?
text.
Okay. How did he respond to the text?
And then I said goodbye,
And then
I
how did he respond to that?
he said good luck.
Okay. Okay. So how do you think, let's give him the benefit of the doubt for a moment. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He was just emotionally distraught for 2 days and he didn't respond, okay? And he had to deal with a life issue. Maybe he's dealing with a health issue, whatever it is. How do you think he felt when he got this text message from you?
I don't know. He's just not an
I'm
emotional guy.
asking you to put yourself in his shoes. How do you think he felt?
He might have been relieved. I feel like I did what he wanted to do.
Okay. Or he could have thought, that's one possibility, which it could be a strong possibility. Or he thought, wow, this person is like really cold. I'm like grateful now. I mean, because
Yeah.
what you did ending the relationship without actually, here you spent 8 weeks. You said he lightened your life up. He did all these wonderful things. but you didn't have a conversation about how you felt disrespected. You just ended it. That's pretty hard. I mean, to a person that might feel like, wow, that's hitting me out of the blue. Like, in other words, you're out of the blue changing everything. I thought we had, I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt here for
No,
a moment on his side. Okay.
yeah.
And he might think, wow, this girl's a nut job. I'm just telling you what he could be thinking. I'm not saying this is what he's thinking. Or he could have felt relieved. It's interesting, though, the amount of time you spent together, nothing prior to that gives me any indication that he was disrespectful or anything. It just sounded like he might have had a bad day and you reacted to it.
Well, he was, every time he traveled, like for work, he'd barely communicate. And he works, I mean, I'm not a jealous
Well,
person.
wait, you're contradicting. You said you talked every day.
Well, except when he traveled, we still talked. Like, he'd call
Okay.
me at the end of the day and we'd talk. But like, it was short. And
Okay.
and it was different than when we are together in person. Like, a lot different.
Okay.
Like, he seemed so disconnected when he traveled.
There's a lot of things you're not telling.
What's
Like
that in the
that.
background I hear? Is someone talking to you?
Yeah, there's
telling you what to say?
No, it's my
Just
friend.
curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he traveled, he was different. I'm going to tell you something. Men are different when they're with you versus when they're not with you. I'm just going to give you a male fact. When we're with you, we're one way. When we're not with you, we're just thinking about our lives. Okay. We're not thinking about you 24/7. When we're apart, we're thinking about our lives. When we're with you, we give you our attention. So his reaction is very common to most men. By the way, I suspect you two will get back together.
I don't know. I doubt it. But
Okay.
thanks, Jonathan. I
All right.
appreciate it a lot.
Well, I appreciate you too. And thank you for being brave enough to be on here. Okay, Bella?
Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
All right. Give me a big hug. Okay.
Big hug.
Big hug. So, here's an interesting example of, I'm kind of curious of they spent a lot of time together, but it doesn't. And she said he checked a lot of boxes, and they were kind to each other and that sort of thing. She said he lit up her life. She said a lot of nice things about him, but he was a little despondent when he was away. Sounds like he also might have had a medical condition where he couldn't generate physical intimacy. The one thing I didn't get a chance to ask her was, did they talk about building a relationship together? It sounded like they spent time together. Certainly, she didn't want to get physically intimate with him, or at least sexual intimate. Well, all right. Intercourse, they didn't have that. But what I don't get is a sense of, did they talk about building a life together? Did they talk about what their aspirations for? Did they talk about what a relationship looks like? While they did some of those things on the outside, I don't get the sense that they were really talking about building a relationship together. Spending 8 weeks and seeing each other 3 times a week and communicating every day, I'm a little surprised that didn't happen. So there was some sort of disconnect. Okay. There was some sort of disconnect. Now, personally, I didn't like the way she ended the relationship. I understand why, but I would have preferred that she try to get some understanding of why he might have been, unavailable or despondent. She used the word ignored for a couple of days. I also recognize that it's not the man's responsibility to always initiate communication. I believe it's a 2-lane street that 2 people can always, it's not the man's responsibility to always initiate. I believe in taking turns initiating. I didn't get a chance to ask that question because she said he ignored her, but I don't know who sent the last communication. It just sounds like something was missing in this dynamic for some reason. They weren't connecting. They were just spending time together. She even pointed out he was kind, he was caring, he introduced her to family, he took her to nice dinners. So it seems like there was a lot of good. I didn't get a sense of what was the wrong, other than he might not. Again, men oftentimes, when they're not with you, they're focused on taking care of life. Okay. And then when they get with you, they're more attention. If she was expecting more attention, just remember that, honestly, when I'm with someone, I give them my attention. And then when I'm apart, I'm doing 1,000 other things. That's just called living life. And they were communicating every day. So again, I'm not sure where the disconnect was, but it sounds like there was a disconnect there and they've moved on. However, I do believe that they'll communicate once again. I'd be shocked if they didn't after spending that much time together. He probably will reach out, is most likely my guess, but I could be wrong on this one. Hey, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I'll do my best to read them all. As always, if you find value in what I shared, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want some support, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. All right, let's see what's being said right now. Ardley says, Jonathan, the ED was the disconnect because he was always afraid she'd find out and leave him. He purposely created the void so he can leave and break up. It's hard to say. I mean, what didn't happen is conversations about sex. I don't get the sense they actually had conversations. It sounded like they got to third base, so they fooled around, but they didn't have conversations around physical intimacy with one another. At least I don't get the sense that they did that. Rose says, it's not your job to overextend yourself in understanding him in this situation. You had all the right to advocate for your needs, and he fell short in building trust with you. See, I disagree with that. It sounds like they spent a lot of time building trust. I mean, again, I'm now speculating here, but there was a moment where she felt the disconnect, and instead of saying, hey, I've noticed that you've disappeared. What's going on? She immediately expressed all her appreciation and ended the relationship. I think a conversation about his temporary pullback would have been warranted versus ending it. And maybe he just took offense to it and said, good luck, or maybe she's right. He felt relieved because maybe there was some disconnect that wasn't discussed earlier. Okay. Poultry says, hell no. Someone ghosts you, they can go to hell. First off, it doesn't sound like he ghosted her. Okay. Her original assertion doesn't feel true here. I think, he just said ignored her. But folks, listen, 48 hours, again, might seem like an eternity. It's not that long to just take time to regroup. Now, if it was a week, yeah, I'd give you some concern there. But this was 48 hours, according to her. Okay. Again, I know many of you are disagreeing with me. Todd thinks there's a lot of man bashing going on in the comment section. I'm offering a possibility because I'm not defending him. I'm here to say that there's another side to the story. There's another side to the story. Wait a minute. Now she didn't articulate this. I did try to speak to him and became violent and defensive. I think it's natural for human beings to get defensive if they're feeling attacked. Now, violent surprises me. I'd like to know what violence was other than raising his voice was just a function of defensiveness. By the way, it's natural to get defensive, folks. Okay. The other night, I had an issue with a neighbor of mine. I was accused of being too loud. I got defensive because I wasn't doing anything loud. It's natural to get defensive. Why do we feel defensive? Because if we feel attacked, we feel we have the need to defend. If somebody feels attacked, it's a natural response to get defensive. It doesn't mean it's right. Okay. This is where appreciative inquiry comes in. Okay. But now being violent, no, I'm definitely not in agreement with that. But to get upset, if we feel like if we're getting attacked, I'm not defending him. I'm just merely creating a possibility of what might be going on inside of him. We shouldn't point the finger at the other person all the time without understanding their point of view. Power of Cheese says something. She seems like she did a preemptive strike, ended things to avoid being hurt through him rejecting her. What do you think? I think that's a possibility. We oftentimes do that because we can preemptively end it. Originally, I thought when she was originally on, I thought he had ended the relationship by ghosting, but I later find out she was the one who ended the relationship. As you said, it could have possibly been a preemptive strike. I would have just preferred, volatile, not violent. Excuse me. This is my dyslexia come in. Thank you, Megan, for clearing that. Volatile, not violent. Okay. Thank you for that. My bad. I read on the fly sometimes. Lulu says, how come they said you're loud if you live by yourself? Actually, it turns out that I have a window that was rattling. And when I walked in the room, it created this rattle that disturbed the neighbors. Turns out I figured out the problem and I put a shimmy there to fix the problem. But I got defensive because I wasn't walking like I'm stomping around the house like I was accused. And then we had a glass of wine and we got through it. Julie says, question, Jonathan. Did you see the movie with Catherine Haig and Gerard Butler in it? He helped her play games to get the guy and worked it. Well, it turns out that Gerard Butler and Catherine Haig end up together because all of her techniques temporarily worked on the other guy, but it worked more on him. But honestly, he fell in love with her for a lot of different reasons because he got to know her heart. That's why he fell in love with her. Rose seems to think he abandoned the relationship, waited until she asks him what's wrong, which she did her part. He snapped at her. She dumped him. Again, well, I don't understand how a text message could be volatile. And okay, now I'm thinking about it because this all happened via text. Okay. But again, I'm not defending her or him. I'm just curious. All I know is this, folks. They spent 8 weeks together all the time. And then all of a sudden it ended abruptly. Something's going on that we don't know the answer to. That's all I'm saying here. There's something going on. We don't know the answer. Ellie says, I would call him up and have a discussion like adults, nothing to lose. And who knows, Jonathan's probably right. You'll get back together. I would have preferred 8 weeks together, that much time. I think a telephone call versus abruptly ending it over text is better. Okay. But then again, I once accidentally ended a relationship over text. I wasn't planning it, but it ended up that way because we realized we were misaligned with each other. Let's see. Caitlin says, Jonathan, I'm really needing your insight. I was with a gentleman that was 20 years my senior, and he broke up with me suddenly. Then I found out he monkey branched. I thought he was better than this. Monkey branch is basically moving on. There's another word. It's the terminology for moving on. A lot of times, here's what I've observed in relationships. We have a significant population of emotionally hurt people out there in the dating marketplace. And they don't know themselves very well. And they're hoping for some sort of magic bullet or a magic brass ring experience to make them fall in love. It's because most human beings don't actually get into the nitty-gritty of talking about what's the purpose of a relationship? What does commitment mean to you? What does a relationship look like for you? Having these deeper conversations leads to clarity. I think it's miscommunication that causes a lot of divide. So again, and it causes people that are looking for brass ring relationships. They're looking for something that feels so spectacular. And certainly when you're being driven by oxytocin and testosterone and serotonin, all of that might feel good in the beginning. But as soon as two people start physical intimacy, you're left with, have we built a friendship? This is what concerns me about Bella's story, because 8 weeks together, 3 times a week, sound like they built a friendship. So I'm still confused as to why this ended if they built a friendship with one another. There's something there that we don't know about. Hey, listen, we could talk about till we're blue in the face. Hey, folks, did you find value in this conversation? Emotional IQ, high emotional IQ starts with knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing your attachment style, being self-aware, taking responsibility for your past relationship, having victor consciousness instead of victim consciousness, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your relationship must-haves, having good relationship skills. This is all part of being emotionally mature. Hey, folks, again, if you found that, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow me on Instagram. All links below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Bella for being on tonight. I want to thank Roller Girl and Maria and Christina and Kristen and Joe Daisy and everyone who donated, and Lisa and Julie, Bella again. Power of Chi, RM Bells, Rose, McCoy Hills Farm. Everyone, big hugs. Thanks a bunch. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful evening.